Okay, so new thing. I think we learned how to make methods last time. Yes? You'll remember making methods just like 2 minutes ago? Okay, now I need to make a method that returns something. Okay, so I remember that if I want to make a method, I can declare a void and a method name. I'm going to call this method square, which is super imaginative, right? It does not make circles. So what I'm going to try to do is take a number. So in the draw method, I'm going to get a random number. So up here at the top, I need a number to start with. How do I make a number variable? Enter float. I'm going to go with a float just because. I'm going to call my float, creatively enough, number. And I'm going to set it equal to 0 to start with. Okay. In my draw method, I'm going to roll my number. So I'm going to do number equals random up to, say, 20. That was kind of a random choice. I should have probably rolled random to figure out the range. What if you do that? Don't do that. Okay, anyway. So I'm calling the random function, right? If you were good in math class, you would note that that seems to be a problem. The idea of a function is that it makes an output for the same input every time. The random method has a hidden input. It takes a time seed so that every time it's called, it generates the random number a little differently. You guys see that? So it's got a hidden input there. At any rate, what I want to do is I want to take my random number that I got and square it. Right? So I'm going to pass that number to the square method. So how do I do that? I want to square parentheses and a semicolon. Okay, so I'm calling the method square. What am I calling the method square on? Nothing yet? So I want to get a random number and then square it. You guys with me? This should be really dumb, right? Because the easy way to do this is to write something like number 2 equals number times number. You guys with me on that? Like I'm doing a dumb example. I'll fully admit that. So what I would like to pass the square method is my number. And now it's complaining that it doesn't expect any parameters. Okay, so I need to make it expect a parameter. I want it to take a float, and I'm just going to call that anything. I'm going to call it Steve. This is a crappy variable choice. Why am I doing this? Should model good behavior. I'm going to call it num. Okay, now this is the part where we're going to get a little wild. I need to pass that back. Like, what I want to do is I want to take num times num and have it appear right here. You guys with me on that? So let me make a way to display that. So what's text take? Char float float.
It takes the number after it's going to the square.
Yeah, so right now this is going to give me the result of the square method on number. And then it's supposed to take a float and a float, right? So I'm just going to put that in the middle of the screen.
So your void, you need to get rid of the void because it rejects returning.
Yeah, this is whining about this it's saying that it expects an integer float. A second ago, it was telling me that it expected a character float. What is the deal with this thing? Why is it whining? What kind of thing is this right now? No. Right now, square done to number is not a thing. So, what I want you guys to check is this guy. So this is the method's name, square, right? Square takes a float called number and makes nothing. Okay? So I want this thing to make a float. I want it to return that number squared, right? So float. And now all of a sudden, it's not whining at me about that anymore. You guys see the text box stopped whining? What's whining now?
You don't have the same name. It's not returning anything.
Yeah, it's right now it's whining about the asterisk in there.
Return number.
Yeah, you want to return, so you do return. You guys see this? So what this is doing is this is taking that number, right, that I randomly rolled, and it's handing it off to the square method where some calculation is done, specifically squaring, and then that's coming back in the place of square number. You guys see that? So I'm doing the method square to the number, and I'm getting back the result of squaring that thing. So if I push go on this, what do I expect it to do? Yeah, I expect this to pick a random number between 0 and 20, square it, and print it out in the middle of the screen, give or take. With no color.
So you called it number, but isn't it expecting number?
The hell?
The default color is white.
Oh, the fill's white, right? So I'm going to change the fill to black. Oops, black. Typing's hard. Black. Okay. And then if I run this, I expect... What is that business?
Is that just a rectangle?
Random float.
Oh.
20, they're pretty small.
Okay, so for one thing, it's printing it way too small, right? How do I make it bigger?
Text size.
Okay, so I go in text size. Oh, the function text size expects something, right? What does it expect? A float. That's the height of your text in pixels. So I'm gonna make it 100 because I can. What else should I change here while I'm in text land?
Excellent.
Yeah, I should probably do text align. Oops. Center.
Yeah, center. Okay.
And put a background.
Yeah, and we probably should make it centered. And what now?
A background to the draw so it resets. It resets.
Oh, you don't want to just draw it over the top of itself a million times? Oh, so smart. Okay. All right. Push go. Oh,
Nice and coherent.
Frame rate.
that's super coherent. Yep. I think we need to drop the frame rate.
Frame rate 3.
Yeah, sure. 3. 3 will probably still be too fast. Okay.
Oh, nice. 0.
That was kind of crazy.
Wait.
Wait.
Why is it from...
So these look like random numbers that are...
Not from 0 to 20.
They're not from 0 to 20. Why are they not from 0 to 20?
You're squaring the
Zero,
random number.
square.
Because I took a random number from 0 to 20 and then squared it, right? So these are random numbers from 0 to
400.
400. And why are they seemingly weighted so much towards the smaller side?
Because of the way math is.
Because of the way math is. Yes, thank you. Because the way math is.
You want to round them off, round the decimals off, you just make it an integer.
Yeah, if you wanted to round, let's see, I could do that here, right? I could typecast to an integer, or I could do that here. Right, if I wanted to make the return type from the squaring method an int, now it's going to whine at me,
Because it's still float.
type mismatch can't convert from float to int.
So you might want to be in back of the text.
So if I put an int here,
Or you could just say the square is a float. I mean,
you guys see that? So I'm forcing it now to return an integer, and I had to do a little typecasting in the return statement to get it to actually be an integer. It won't let you return a float if you're saying that it wants to return an integer. It won't let you return a string if your return statement is about an integer. It'll get confused basically if the types don't match.
Now we should have nice even numbers.
So now we should have kind of nice even numbers.
There we go.
It's kind of weird that 0 crops up.
Those aren't square numbers.
These aren't squares of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
squares
what's
and
up?
floats and then typecast it.
Yeah, these are squares of floats that I then typecasted, right? If I wanted to make sure they were squares of integers,
This is the least.
I would typecast up here.
It's like the least accurate range of the square. Like, I square them.
There we
Yeah,
go.
289.
Okay, so now these are at least integers squared. So when I did that, do I need this other typecast down here?
No.
I don't think I need that one.
Well, you still have this.
Why is it?
Oh, I gotta
Still have
change
this
that.
float
last.
now. You need to have it.
Oh, you guys see that?
Convert it to a float.
So it's complaining not because in an instance of a run, right? But because I could call it on a float. You guys see that? So even though this particular code block doesn't ever call it on a float, it's whining because it could be called on a float. So I want to take and change the input type to integer. And now it'll be fun.
Well,
Oh, and square accept wants an integer as a parameter. What kind of thing is number?
all random integer.
Yeah, it's a random integer down here, but type-wise at the top, it's declared to be a float, right?
That's annoying.
So you got to be a little careful. Not all languages are this picky about type, but processing is. So now I should get random integer squares between 0 and 19 squared. Perfect. Why not 400?
Because
It's rounded
of
down.
reasons.
Yeah, because I typecast a random down, right?
If you want to get 21,
Yeah, so if you want to get up to 20, you need to make this range 21. You guys all good with that? Okay, so the moral of the method story is you have a return type here and input types here, and then you can do stuff in this code block. Keep in mind that your method won't do anything if you don't call it somewhere in the draw or the setup or mouse pressed. You can make a mouse pressed method and then put a method call in there. You guys all good with that? Cool? Questions, Steels? Okay.